In this lesson we'll discuss what happened after the Histalkus of the Mezeritcher Maggid, after the passing of the Maggid. We can divide this time period in two parts. One part is from Tov Kuf Lamed Gimel, 1773, when the Mezeritcher Maggid was Histalkus, until Tov Kuf Lamed Zayin, till 1777. That was when Mendel Haradaka and many other of the Hasidic leaders and Hasidic families moved from Russia to Eretz Yisrael. And the second time period is from 1777 until Tov Kuf Mem Ches, which is 1788. That's when the Mendel Haradaka was Histalkus, when he passed away. And we'll soon explain what transpired during these two time periods. When the Mezeritcher Maggid was Histalkus, when he passed away, the one who became the head of the Hasidic movement at that time was Rebbe Menachem Mendel Haradaka. Sometimes he's called Rebbe Menachem Mendel Haradaka, and sometimes he's called Rebbe Menachem Mendel Vitebsk. He used to live in the city of Haradok, then later he moved to the city of Vitebsk. And that's why we have these both names. However, being that it was a time that the opposition, the Misnagdim, were intensifying all their activities to undermine and to destroy the Hasidic movement, the Talmidim of the Maggid, the Chevrai Kadisha, realized that it's an absolute must that there should be someone who would be able to coordinate all the activities to spread the teachings of Chassidus, but it has to be someone who's very strong in spirit. Someone who will not be weakened or intimidated by all the things that the Misnagdim were doing, their announcements and their statements and their excommunications, and all the things similar to this, which were only becoming progressively worse. And all the Talmidim of the Maggid chose the Alter Rebbe to be this general coordinator. So the Alter Rebbe, during this time period, used to travel to the different centers, in other words, the cities where the Talmidim of the Maggid were stationed. These were the centers from where they functioned, from where they spread the teachings of Chassidus. The Alter Rebbe also would travel to the Misnagdish communities in a way that he did not identify himself, nobody knew who he was, and he would, first of all, observe their way of life, and learn from that how to deal with them, how to communicate with them. And also he would discuss Torah with them, and they were amazed of his vast knowledge of Torah and his unique way of learning and studying Torah. Many of them would ask the Alter Rebbe to give them some sort of a curriculum and to guide them how to study. And eventually they came to the city of Lozhin to become students of the Alter Rebbe. And that's how the Alter Rebbe acquired many Chassidim, through these trips that he made in different cities all around Russia. During this time period, there was a lot of conflict going on between the Chassidim and the Misnagdim. As I mentioned before, it only became worse. And it came to a point where Mendel Haradaka called in the Alter Rebbe and Rebbe Avram Kaliska, another of the Maggid's Talmidim, and he said to him that he wants them to travel to the city of Vilna and to meet personally with the Vilna Gaon. At that time, the individual who was considered the greatest Torah scholar in the Misnagdisha world and the greatest person in the Misnagdisha world was the Vilna Gaon. And therefore, it was important to go to him, and if he would be able to understand and see the truth of what Chassidus is all about, and everything people are saying in a negative way is actually based on false testimony, this would calm down the whole machlokes. So the Alter Rebbe and Rebbe Avram Kaliska traveled to the city of Vilna. When they came to the city of Vilna, their host was Reb Shmuel, who was the head of the Bezdin of Vilna. He was actually very excited that they came, because he thought finally, now the head of the Chassidim will have a debate with the Vilna Gaon, and finally things will be 100% clear. We'll know where we stand. However, when they came to the Vilna Gaon, he refused to meet with them. And he said, you're not allowed to have any discussions with such people. They tried twice, and he just closed the door and wouldn't meet with them. Different people in the community, great Torah scholars in the community, tried to apply a lot of pressure that the Vilna Gaon should meet with them, because they all felt that as they would meet, this would finally put an end to all the fighting and all the arguments. But the Vilna Gaon refused to meet with them, to the extent that when he saw there's so much pressure, he just left his house, and he went away someplace, and he waited until the two of them left. So when the Alter Rebbe, Ram Kaliska, saw that there's just no choice, he's not going to have any discussion with them, they went away from the city of Vilna, and they went to another city, Shklov. They were hoping that over there they'll be able to have some sort of a debate or discussion with the Misnagdim of that community. When they came there, initially they said, we'll have a discussion, and whoever comes out with the truth and right, that's the way it'll be. And you have nothing to worry. If you people show us that you're right, we'll leave you alone. But then the Alter Rebbe saw, as they were discussing things, they realized that they will lose the debate with the Alter Rebbe, and they started to actually attack the Alter Rebbe and Rav Kaliska. They had them locked up in a cellar, and they were waiting till the next day. They were planning to do something to publicly humiliate them. But Baruch Hashem, the Alter Rebbe and Rav Kaliska managed to escape, and they ran to a nearby inn, not far from the city of Shklov. And while they were there, they realized that the owner of the inn himself is a very big Maggid, and he's also planning to do something to them. And they finally had to run away from there, until they finally reached the city of Vitebsk, and they returned to Mendel Vitebsk and told him of the fact that they did not succeed with what they wanted to accomplish. So basically, during this time period, from the time of the Histalkus of the Maggid until the year Tafkuf Lamed Zayin, 1777, the Alter Rebbe was traveling from one place to the other, coordinating and strengthening all the activities to spread Chassidus and acquiring more and more students that began to study Chassidus and became Chassidim. What happened in the year Tafkuf Lamed Zayin? That year, the Mendel Haradaka and other of the great Chassidic leaders made a decision that they're going to move to Eretz Yisrael. And it was decided that the Alter Rebbe, he will become the general coordinator of all the activities here in Russia, and he will also be the Nasi of the Chassidim in Russia. The Alter Rebbe himself, though, had not decided whether or not he also will move to Eretz Yisrael. In fact, Alter Rebbe said once that for 3 months he was in tremendous pain and turmoil because he couldn't decide whether or not he should move to Eretz Yisrael. During this time period, his Rebbe, the Mezeritcher Maggid, appeared to him a number of times, and he encouraged him that he should stay in Russia, shouldn't travel to Eretz Yisrael. But nevertheless, after all the thinking and all the decision-making, the Alter Rebbe decided that he too will travel to Eretz Yisrael with Reb Mendel Haradaka. The Alter Rebbe with his family left the city of Lozhna, and after Pesach, he joined Reb Mendel Haradaka and all the other families and people that were traveling to Eretz Yisrael. At one point, when they came to the city of Maggid, the Alter Rebbe, Rebbe Abraham Kaliska, Reb Mendel Haradaka, and the other families spent 3 weeks there. During this time period, many of the Alter Rebbe's students and followers came to the Alter Rebbe as individuals and groups, and they were begging and pleading with him that he should stay here. And they want him to be their Rebbe and their leader, to teach them. When Reb Mendel Haradaka saw how much the students are begging and pleading with him and begging that he should stay, he began to speak to the Alter Rebbe to convince him to stay. And for one time, the Alter Rebbe spent for an entire week, hours, with Reb Mendel Haradaka. After that week, Reb Mendel Haradaka and all the other families left Eretz Yisrael. The Alter Rebbe stayed in the city of Maggid, and he isolated himself for 2 complete weeks. with his own thoughts. After the 2 weeks, the Alter Rebbe notified everyone that he made a decision. He's staying. In the beginning, they were not sure where he's going to live, but then he made the decision that he's going to live in the city of Lozhna, and he returned back to the city of Lozhna. There are a lot of details of what transpired in the city itself. Number one, when the Alter Rebbe left, how the entire city also begged and pleaded and was very upset that the Alter Rebbe was leaving their city. But then on the other hand, when the Alter Rebbe notified him that he's coming back, the great joy and the ceremony and everything that they did to welcome the Alter Rebbe back. There is also the Takonas Lozhna. And these are special rules that the Alter Rebbe instituted for the entire community of Lozhna, for all the people that came to the Alter Rebbe, a lot of different details of when they can come and what conditions, and there are many, many details to this. It's actually printed in the Sefer HaToldos in all of the details. When the men Haradaka and the other Hasidic Rebbes and families went to Eretz Yisrael, before they left, there was a meeting between all the Chavrai Kadisha, all the students of the Maggid, and they had made many decisions. Between the decisions, one of them was that all the Hasidic Rebbes that remained in Russia, they take upon themselves to support those families that went to Eretz Yisrael. It was also decided that all the students of the Maggid would become the Nasi of Chassidus in his community, in his territory. The Alter Rebbe was chosen to become the Nasi of Lithuania. The Alter Rebbe was also appointed to be the head of all the Talmidim of Maggid in reference to two things. Number one, in reference to coordinating the tzedakah that would be used to support the families that went to Eretz Yisrael. And number two, he would be the head for the next 5 years to coordinate all the activities in all the centers that would be spreading and strengthening the teachings of Chassidus. In fact, we know that the Egeres HaKodesh, the 4th volume of Tanya, Egeres HaKodesh means letters. They're all letters Alter Rebbe sent. Most of the letters are in reference to tzedakah and the importance of giving tzedakah. And, in fact, most of the letters are about the tzedakah to be sent to Eretz Yisrael. This fund that was established by the Alter Rebbe for money to be sent to Eretz Yisrael for tzedakah to support those families, this is what we know as Keilu Chabad. So this is a tzedakah fund that the Alter Rebbe himself supervised all the activities of this fund, and the same with all the Rabbeim in every generation. And the Rebbe Zolgazunzain also was personally supervising the Keilu Chabad fund, and the custom is, the Rebbe encourages this very often in letters, that the women should make sure to give to tzedakah in Keilu Chabad before Lichbenchen on Erev Shabbos and Erev Yontif. So this is all a result of when the Mendel Haradaka and his families and the other Hasidic Rebbes that all left Eretz Yisrael, the Alter Rebbe took upon himself to be responsible for the tzedakah to be sent out to support those families. As we'll see later, this later became the basis for those people who informed against Alter Rebbe, which later eventually led to his arrest and his release on Yitzhak Kislev. As we'll speak about this in the future lessons, how the Alter Rebbe was accused of supporting the Turkish army with the purpose of strengthening that army so they can come and attack Russia, because they said, look at all this money that he's sending to Eretz Yisrael. And in those days, Eretz Yisrael was under the rulership of Turkey. And even though the Alter Rebbe was accused of this, and this is what led to his arrest, the Alter Rebbe himself writes that on what schus was he released from jail, specifically in the schus of the tzedakah that he collected for the families in Eretz Yisrael. During these years, the Alter Rebbe established in the city of Lozhna what was called the Chadorim. there were three groups of students that studied. The groups were divided by their level. There was Cheder Aleph, Cheder Beis, and Cheder Gimel. And each group of students, the Alter Rebbe personally was involved in their curriculum, what to learn. The Alter Rebbe taught them, and there are a lot of details of what went on with these groups, the Chadarim. But these are where the students were taught by the Alter Rebbe, and they learned all about Chassidus, and from there they got their strength to go out in different parts of Russia, and each one became a teacher of Chassidus and spread Chassidus in his city. The Alter Rebbe had three brothers, and they were the ones who used to teach. One was Rabbi Yehuda Leib, one was Rabbi Mordechai, and one was Rabbi Moshe. And all of them were incredible geniuses in all areas of Torah. But they each excelled in different areas of Torah, and each one taught that. So the students of the Alter Rebbe, when they learned in Lajna, in these three Chadarim, they were learning both. They were learning Nigla, Gemara, and Halacha, and at the same time they were learning Chassidus. And with this, they had the tools to go out later to different Misnagdisha communities to be able to communicate with them on their level in the teachings of Nigla, and they earned their respect by the people that they spoke to, and then they were able to listen to the Chassidus that they taught, and that's how they were able to bring so many of the people in Lithuania to become Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. As we mentioned before, that during these years, the opposition from the Misnagdim became progressively worse. Every effort was made to undermine the Chassidic movement and to undermine Chassidim, undermine their livelihood, not allowing them to have their own shul, not allowing them to have their own shechita, doing everything to make life not livable for them. And from time to time, a different community and different Rabbanim came out with one statement or another statement, excommunication. And it finally reached a point where it was absolutely a must that there should be some sort of a public debate on a very large scale, in a very public way, that people would finally be able to see that everything that's being said against the Chassidim are lies and fabrications just being made by people who are mechacheres, people who just thrive on arguing and on fighting, and other people who are just tmimin, they're just innocent, fall into their traps and take seriously what they're told. If there be a public debate, it finally can be proven openly to see that Chassidus is emes, and that the Chassidim are really truly Yirei Shamayim. And it finally came to that point in the year Tov Kuf Mem Gimel, 1783. There was a very big debate with thousands of people in the city of Minsk. Initially, when the Alter Rebbe came to the city of Minsk, the Bezdin there, the Misnagdim, called the Alter Rebbe to appear in their special building where they were going to talk to him and discuss with him to see that Chassidus is emes. The Alter Rebbe said that he refuses to go there, and he's determined that it should not be in a big place, that all the people that were there, because there were thousands of people, both from the Misnagdim, and also many Chassidim came to join the Alter Rebbe. They should all be able to be present and hear the questions and answers. And finally, the Bezdin of the Misnagdim agreed to the Alter Rebbe's condition. The Alter Rebbe also said that it's impossible to debate with thousands of people, and therefore his request is they should choose just a few people, and these people will ask the Alter Rebbe whatever question he wants, and the Alter Rebbe would like to ask them questions. And they agreed to that, but they wanted that first they will ask the Alter Rebbe their questions to see if he's really knowledgeable in Torah, if he's really a true Torah scholar, and then the Alter Rebbe can ask him their questions. And the time that was set aside for the debate was the following week, Tuesday. In the meantime, it was Shabbos, and the Alter Rebbe had a few hundred of his Chassidim that also came to join, and the city gave him a special place to daven. Actually, the Alter Rebbe his time of davening was later. The Misnagdim in the city, they davened very early, and by 9 o'clock in the morning they were finished with their davening already. So many of them came to the Alter Rebbe's shul to see how the Chassidim daven. And they came to hear how the Alter Rebbe says Torah. Naturally, they came with the intention to laugh and to find what there is to ridicule, make fun of. But they were actually very affected in a positive way. When they heard the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, it had an incredible effect on all those that were listening, and it inspired them. They saw the way the Chassidim davened. They heard the way the Alter Rebbe read from the Torah. The Alter Rebbe himself used to be the Baal Korah. He himself read the Torah. And he read it in a way which was extremely accurate, following all the laws of grammar, the way you're supposed to read the words. To the extent that, as we know, one of the differences between Sfardim and Ashkenazim is that when the Sfardi speaks, you can tell the difference between an ayin and an aleph, between a ches and a chos. But Ashkenazim, you can't tell the difference. The Alter Rebbe was, of course, Ashkenazi. Nevertheless, he would say the words in such a way that you can tell the difference between the aleph and the ayin, and the ches and the chos. The Alter Rebbe himself would read the Torah. Chassidim would say that many times it would happen. The Alter Rebbe, when he read, would have the talus covering his face. And all you can see was the Alter Rebbe's holy beard. Sometimes the Alter Rebbe would uncover the talus and just look at the person who got the aliyah. In fact, there were a number of times where the person who got the aliyah, when he saw the Alter Rebbe looking at him, was overcome with such fear that he fainted. And it happened more than once. So when they saw the davening, they heard the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, they heard the Alter Rebbe's reading of the Torah, all this had a very positive impression on many of the people in the city. This was even before the debate. And finally, the debate itself took place on Tuesday. One of the Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, his name is Rebbe Isaac of Vitebsk, he related different details that happened by this great debate. He himself was there personally. In fact, he went there with his Rebbe, who himself was an older man in his 80s. His name is Reb Zemel. But he felt that if he goes, maybe he'll have this chus to bring this great leader of the Chassidim to do tshuva. He said to his student, Rebbe Isaac, that I heard that this leader, this rabbi of the Chassidim, is actually a tremendous, incredible Torah scholar, but it looks like the Satan got him and something happened to him. So maybe I'll have the chus to go there and turn him around. Rebbe Isaac said that the people that came to this debate in this city of Minsk were the greatest Torah scholars of that time. And the oldest Torah scholars were sitting there at the head of the table. There was a man by the name of Reb Kalka, Reb Shimele, and Reb Zemel. Reb Kalka was one of the first students of the Vilna Gaon. He was Baki in Shas, Rashi and Tosfos Baal Peh. He was able to say the words of Rashi and Tosfos and the entire Shas verbatim. In fact, he couldn't see well, so most of his learning was by heart, and he used to say word for word. The other one, Reb Shimele, he was Baki and Babli, but his greatness was primarily in Yerushalmi and the Rambam. Then there was Reb Zemel, that was his personal Rebbe, and he was a person that, in addition to all the knowledge of the Nigla part of Torah, he also knew Kabbalah. And he was a very great God-fearing Jew. And when all these Torah scholars, and especially these three, came to this debate, they sat down. First they had to nullify the excommunication that was placed upon the Chassidim a number of years ago. And they said, after all, there's an excommunication, but now for the sake of showing the world how these people are really against Torah, we're allowed to nullify temporarily this excommunication. And one of the three older Rabbanim spoke about these Chassidim that this rabbi of theirs, he's such a great man in Torah. His Torah knowledge is incredible. And he has such a power that he's drawing so many thousands of people to follow in his path. And then started to repeat different things that they heard, part of the fabrications and stories that people made up against Chassidim and against the Alter Rebbe. And they were crying about the fact that such terrible destruction happened to the Jewish people. In fact, the Misnagdim declared that day a fast day, and that's how they were approaching this great debate. Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac said when the Alter Rebbe walked in, they made an aisle for him to pass through. When the Alter Rebbe walked in, he said the words, Vani b'reiv chazecha, Ove v'secha, which means, and I will come to your house. It's a pasuk which we say when you walk into a shul. He said when the Alter Rebbe said these words, especially when he said the words b'yira secha, that I come to the shul with fear, everybody in the room was overcome with incredible fear. Alter Rebbe sat down in his place, said Kapitel Kuf Lamed of Tillin, and then, when the Alter Rebbe finished, he sat down in the place that was designated for him. The first thing that happened was that these rabbis, they tested the Alter Rebbe. They asked him questions to see if he's really, truly a Torah scholar. And this test was in the presence of everyone, and it lasted for 5 hours. The result was that everybody saw clearly that the Alter Rebbe was a giant in Torah, and that he knew every aspect of Torah, every part of Torah, every sefer of Torah, and he knew it by heart. And everything he spoke about, he spoke and said it by heart as if he was reading clearly from inside the sefer. When they finished with questioning the Alter Rebbe said, now I'd like to ask you questions and see if you can answer me. And the Alter Rebbe asked them questions in Torah. At this point, the Rabbanim who were involved said that they have to take a break, and we'll see when we'll continue. When they went away from the shul, they had a little discussion with them between themselves, and they saw one thing is clear, that this man is absolutely a giant in Torah. And on the other hand, the questions he asked them are very difficult questions. They're not even sure they understand it 100%. And therefore they decided that they won't have the continuation today, they'll have it tomorrow. But in the meantime, word spread out through the entire city that in this great debate, they asked Alter Rebbe questions for 5 hours, and he answered everything in an incredible way. Then the Alter Rebbe asked them questions, and they had nothing to answer, and they decided to push it off for the next day.